Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I'm not here with Geeky Sparkles in this video. She's going to be sitting videos out today. She's not feeling too well, but she should be back tomorrow. We're going to talk about comic books. We're going to talk about Deadpool and Deadpool creator Rob Liefeld, who is actually one of my favorite comic creators of all time. I've always loved this guy's enthusiasm for comics, and you can say what you will about his art, but it's very distinctive, I think. And he was very financially successful. And like I said, this guy loves comics more than most professionals. In fact, he oozes enthusiasm for comics. We've got to Robservations, his podcast. It is probably one of, if not the best, comic book centric podcasts out there. And I love listening to his stories. Some inside baseball behind the scenes of some of our, favorite comic books. And sometimes he talks, TV shows and movies and stuff like that. I think it's really interesting. It's really interesting to listen to, but, he's getting into it with Disney. So we're going to talk about this because this is not the first time, and I'm sure it will not be the last time, that creators of certain IP get into it with Disney. And, of course, Disney bought Fox, and he had, I guess, a pretty good relationship with Fox for the previous two Deadpool movies, but this next Deadpool film, I don't know what this relationship looks like. It seems very, very strained. So we're gonna talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Go out to Indiegogo. You can back our comic book series, graphic novel series, Shadowbinders, steampunk, fantasy, and romantic comedy. That is a thing. All of those things all in one place. But we've been doing Shadowbinders. Well, we did it as a webcomic, and what this volume collects is the remnant of the webcomic version of Shadowbinders, as well as new content. And then it's going to be all new content going forward. You can also pick up some other Clownfish Studios stuff that maybe you missed out on the first time. This book is coming to you later this year. But there we go. I had to give the pitch. But it sounds like there's trouble in paradise. There's trouble in the Magic Kingdom. This is coming from Fandom Wire, and we'll go out to Reddit. A lot of people in the Marvel Studios subreddit talking about it as well. According to Fandom Wire, and they pulled his tweets, and I saw his tweets the other day. I didn't have Warner Brothers treating me better than Disney on my bingo card, Deadpool creator Rob Liefeld said in an open declaration of war against Disney and Marvel. Now, he's, I think, gotten into it with them before over Deadpool. And look, Disney is notorious for not wanting to compensate creators for their creations. In fact, they go to great lengths to weasel out of deals, royalty arrangements. This has happened to many people. In fact, we were just talking about it on my wife's Disney podcast, on Geeky's Disney podcast. And, they screwed over several Star Wars authors because they had a deal with Lucasfilm. And then once Disney acquired Lucasfilm, they negated those royalty arrangements and they went after Disney. And a lot of times they're just like, oh, we lost the paperwork for it. But it sounds to me like this is about royalties in regards to Deadpool for Deadpool and Wolverine. And what's going to be really interesting about this is that this movie probably has the best shot of anything coming out this summer of being a blockbuster, because so far everything that's been released has been a major misfire this summer. But Deadpool and Wolverine looks legitimately good. People are legitimately hyped for this movie. And that being said, he probably legitimately would like his bank account to fill up as a result of that. And, we know how Disney is. If they use one of your comic books as a base for an MCU movie that does $1 billion at the box office, they'll give you like $5,000 and a thank you buried somewhere in the credits at the end. And you might get to go to the premiere. Maybe. That's what I've heard. But it's kind of insultingly low given how much money these movies are making. But then the flip side is, if you were work for hire, and Rob was work for hire when he created Deadpool, then the deal is what the deal is. And that's unfortunate. But he said, one needs to understand that comic book creators are the lifeblood of the narratives that grab our imaginations. So this sounds, a lot of these stories coming from Fandom Wire lately sound kind of AI generated. I don't know if they are or not, but they go into the whole backstory. If you don't know who Rob Liefeld is, he was very, very big in the late 80s, early 90s. He was one of the founding members of Image Comics. He transitioned the New Mutants, most notably the New Mutants, into X-Force, which introduced Cable and Deadpool. And, at one point, Cable was bigger than Deadpool. People seem to forget that. Like, Cable was a huge character in the early 90s. Like, if you read Wizard Magazine, Cable was always like in the top 3 characters. And Deadpool later kind of came into his own, but he was just a bad guy for Cable to punch at first, So I remember that. And everybody keeps trying to rewrite it like, Cable was never popular. Cable's just this lame character. It's like, no, Cable was very, very popular. Anyway, Liefeld recently confessed a few angry things on his X/Twitter page. In the tweets, he mentioned an unpleasant and inconsiderate experience his representatives had with Disney. With his candid revelations of a heated negotiation fallout, we are reminded that even the mastermind behind superheroes must deal with corporate giants. This is a very, very common story, unless it's your own IP. If you did work for hire for Marvel or DC, chances are very good when the movie comes out that you're going to get screwed. I'm just saying, that's a very, very good chance you're going to get screwed. Could Liefeld's thunderous battle cry, hint at a larger struggle for fair recognition and compensation in the comic book industry? Deadpool co-creator Rob Liefeld raises concerns over his Disney collaboration. Well, to be fair, when he created Deadpool for Marvel, Marvel's not owned by Disney. This is what he said. He said, "My reps were screamed at today. We are not Fox. Tell me about it. Also hung up on more soon. I didn't have Warner Brothers treating me better than Disney on my bingo card, but there it is." He didn't provide specific details, probably because he can't. Fans speculate it may be related to compensation for his creation appearing in the upcoming Deadpool and Wolverine movie. If that's the case, it wouldn't be the first time Disney has faced backlash for its treatment of creators. Alan Dean Foster famously took Disney to court over unpaid royalties for his Star Wars novels, eventually reaching a settlement. Yeah, that was a whole thing. And sometimes they do it because they're like, hey, it's going to be cheaper for us to settle and shut them up than to pay them. Or we settle with the loudest voices and then we shut them up. Because every settlement with Disney comes with the shut up clause, right? You're not allowed to talk about the specifics of the deal. Every single settlement they reach. That is the deal you make with Mickey. That's why when people get injured or worse on rides, they just kind of disappear. They take the money and they disappear. Disney argued that having acquired the contracts from Lucasfilm, this is the Star Wars deal, they were no longer obligated to fulfill the conditions of the earlier agreements. Foster and many other writers are said to have received their royalties after the case was ultimately resolved, though more do occasionally surface. In 1990, Liefeld and Nicieza collaborated to create the Deadpool character. Liefeld undoubtedly is the more outspoken of the two. The former frequently discusses the character on social media, at conventions, in interviews, and on his podcast. Again, excellent podcast. I highly recommend it if you haven't checked it out. Lots of inside baseball. I feel like I'm kind of like listening to Wizard Magazine when I listen to this podcast. So he's retired from Deadpool. So it's official after 33 years. This was in February, I remember that. After 33 years of introducing Deadpool, but chronicling many of his most popular adventures, it's time for the Deadpool daddy to say farewell. And then, of course, Twitter, being Twitter, is like, you didn't make Deadpool. Deadpool was nothing. Deadpool was nothing until other creators, gave him a voice. And that's not entirely true. I mean, Deadpool was popular. He was. Even though he started out as a parody of Deathstroke, right? Slade Wilson. Wade Wilson, Slade Wilson. I mean, that was the thing they did back then. Marvel and DC, they always kind of would riff on one another. But, with regards to the WB comment, he's never shied away from collaborating with other businesses. He co-founded Image, blah, 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 blah. This is a very, high level, superficial article. If you don't know about the inside workings of the comic book industry, they're leaving a lot out. But yeah, he did co-create Deadpool. He's considered to be because as I understand it, the way that they worked back then, and I could be mistaken, but it was basically Liefeld came up with the character and Fabian gave the character dialogue. But the way that they used to work, the artists were definitely driving the train. They were definitely running the show in the late 80s and early 90s at Marvel. A lot of times they would just draw what they wanted to draw, and then the writers would come in later and just be like, let's put some dialogue here. And I guess that's how Youngblood worked out too. And that's a whole thing too. I don't know what happened. He lost control of that. This is tragic. I'm surprised Fandom Wire actually picked this up. They talked about the Ed Piskor suicide episode. That was one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever listened to. He talks about, he knew Ed pretty well, I guess. And he broke down at the end of the podcast talking about him. And I have to wonder if part of the decision to just kind of step away from comics, if he's kind of pulling back a little bit. I don't know if he is or not, but I think a lot of people is because the industry right now is just not in a good place. We have a lot of really, I'm going to be honest, we have a lot of really terrible people working in comics, and it's a very, as the money runs out, it seems like it's getting worse. That's my personal opinion, but that was heartbreaking. But it was a good episode. It was a celebration of everything that Ed Piskor did, and probably the best professional tribute I think that he's gotten. Again, coming from a guy who actually worked with him. But I digress. Check it out. Just be warned, it will gut you. But yeah, this is Reddit. Reddit, the Marvel Studios subreddit. Apparently there was something going on between Rob Liefeld and Disney. Maybe it's Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm sure it is. He said, I didn't have Warner Brothers treating me better than Disney on my bingo card, but there it is. The big corps seek to intimidate in all manner of ways. The little guys are always tasked with continuing to press forward despite the screaming. My reps were screamed at today. We are not Fox. Tell me about it. Also hung up on more soon. I'm sure. And this is the thing. They don't, Disney will do everything they can do to get out of contracts. They'll get, out of situations where they have to pay people. I mean, look, I guess if Scarlett Johansson gets screwed over by Disney, what chance does a comic book artist have? It's just, that's just kind of the way it is. And the only reason that Alan Dean Foster got a cent out of them was that there was such a massive pushback, massive backlash. And it wasn't just him. There were several other creators that weren't getting paid. And this is just how they do it. And they've got some of the best lawyers on the planet, and they will wear you down. I mean, we've talked about this before with the whistleblower, the SEC whistleblower, Sandy Kuba. They basically just wore her down. And that's what they do. I mean, when you've got basically unlimited money, or they had at the time, they had unlimited money. I mean, what are you going to do about it? So just know that if you're working for Marvel or you're working for any division in Disney, if they make a movie out of your characters, you're not going to get royalties out of it. And that is understood. I did freelance work for Disney Comics on a variety of licensed comics for 15 years. I think I did about 15 years. I knew what I was signing. I mean, I signed it, and it was like, we can basically reprint your stories and not give you any additional compensation. And stuff I've worked on is, been reprinted in like Brazil and Norway and like all over the damn place. I don't even know where all the stuff I've worked on has been reprinted, but I don't get any additional compensation. I got my very meager page rate, and that was it. And that's the way it works for most Disney artists. And it's the same with Don Rosa even. And this is why he has had such an issue with Disney. So a lot of his compensation came from selling his original art. And there's a whole big thing where they wanted his originals, and he wasn't going to sell his originals, or he wasn't going to give them to Disney to sell, because they probably would just, put them in some stupid store in a theme park or something, being like, look, everybody, it's Scrooge McDuck art, it's DuckTales art, or something like that. And that just infuriated him. So I think that was a big falling out that he had with them. And he actually wound up trademarking his name, so they couldn't sell Don Rosa collections without his explicit consent. So but that's understood when you work for Disney. Now, Rob, his deal was pre-Disney, but once they bought Marvel, that's the way it goes. And you want to know why they're not creating new characters at Marvel and even Warner Brothers to some degree? It's because of this. What incentive do you have to create new characters? You really don't have an incentive to create new characters. So they just repurpose old characters, existing characters. If they want to make and we talked about this before, they want to make a character gay or whatever. Well, that character that's been around forever now becomes your self-insert because you're not going to create a new character, or you're going to create a variation of these legacy characters or something. And there's a whole theory about copyright and creating offshoots of characters. So if we want to get rid of Peter Parker, you've got Miles Morales and you can still do Spider-Man. I'm not really sure about that. I mean, I don't know. I'm being honest. I don't know if that is the motivation or not. I could see a company like Disney doing that, but they don't want to pay royalties forever. You basically work for the mouse. Everything you create, the mouse owns, and that's it. Shut up. That's their attitude. So it's going to be interesting because, this movie, I think, has the potential. I don't think it's going to do $1 billion, but I think 800 million is, if it's good, I think it's very conceivable. And he could get, if they were being fair, or if he got a deal like he had with Fox, it could be worth millions of dollars. And I don't think Disney's going to give it to him. They'll give him, $5,000 and a pat on the back. Maybe they'll send him a free popcorn bucket. Say, here you go, kid. There you go. Thanks so much. Thanks for making us all that money. And then they'll proceed to just keep selling Deadpool t-shirts and Deadpool this and Deadpool that. And I don't know if he's getting any royalties off of that or not. But there it is, guys. That's Disney. I'm going to wrap this one up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.